Part of her economic plans focused on Black men, the VP pointed to the significant crypto investments among the demographic. She vowed to support a regulatory framework where investors would be protected, and her agenda says that more than 20% of Black men either own or have owned cryptocurrencies. It also mentions that Harris, quote, appreciates the ways in which new technologies can broaden access to banking and financial services. The crypto industry has been pushing the vice president to make her stance on crypto clearer, with less than a month until Election Day.
Makes me think, speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
I just feel strongly people should not be going to jail for smoking weed. And we know historically what that has meant and who has gone to jail. We need to legalize it and stop criminalizing this behavior.
Boeing shares are lower this morning and down more than 40% year to date. The company now plans to cut 10% of its workforce, or 17,000 jobs, as the machinist strike enters its fifth week. Joining us now with more on Boeing, Ken Herbert, RBC Capital Aerospace and Defense Analyst. And Ken, it's kind of, other than Boeing, it's like the best of times in the industry, worst of times for Boeing. It's really pretty astounding, the dichotomy between aerospace and defense and then Boeing at this point.
It is. It's frustrating and, yes, very interesting. You see incredibly strong demand for travel, which has resulted in very strong demand for aftermarket spending, which obviously benefits a lot of companies in the sector. I would just comment, though, that it's not just Boeing that's having supply chain issues and obviously a strike, but there are supply chain issues impacting other companies. But clearly, and the outlook for defense is relatively robust, I would say, and those stocks, I think, have some opportunity as well. So interesting time we're in, and let's hope we're hitting the bottom here and things can start to look better into 25.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher, and you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. And we have Kamala Harris calls for crypto regulation and economic plan for Black men. Yes, you heard that correct. And we had Obama try to make a last-ditch effort before the election and got cooked. And when Kamala became vice president and was running, I've done plenty of videos on her, so we know her record is not great. And don't forget she gave Steve Mnuchin and others a pass. And now to get more votes, Kamala is saying that marijuana should be legal and people who use it shouldn't go to jail. And we've seen this movie before. Remember, guys, politicians are nothing but paid puppets. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. And, guys, they keep coming. That's right. These layoffs keep coming. Boeing, 17,000. And, guys, remember, these are the good jobs. These are the career jobs. These are jobs that people used to work for 40-plus years. But remember, there's a bigger plan behind it. And that's the fourth industrial revolution. And we have Jay Clayton on tariffs. And Trump's tariffs can't be that bad because the only thing Biden did was just extend them. He kept them in place. And going towards the end of this year, we hear the drums getting louder. And remember, the drums are beating are nothing but a distraction for this fourth industrial revolution. But this interview was very powerful because we finally heard someone say the Russian oil was not affected. It was just redirected to India and China, and we know that's all for the fourth industrial revolution. Russia was already preparing to get off the dollar back in 2014. And I've done plenty of videos on that. This is all a strategy, people, a plan. I don't care what country you go to. They all have a plan for this fourth industrial revolution. And the BRICS summit is next week, so you're going to have plenty of distractions. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Jay, before we let you go, I have one final question. It actually has to do with this story that we were talking about in the last hour. Lighthizer, who's been going around and having meetings around tariffs, or at least discussing the idea of imposing tariffs almost immediately if former President Trump were to win this election. Is your sense that these tariffs would go on immediately? The reason I ask is there was also a view, which, by the way, I think I espoused at one point, which was that these tariffs would be used, if they were, as a negotiating tool, as a way of trying to push China and other countries to do things that may be in our interest. Now, maybe you have to impose them immediately to get that negotiating leverage, but I don't think that almost anybody expected they would be imposed on day one.
Andrew, let me tie your question together with what we were just talking about in terms of antitrust and competition policy. I do think that if you have a Trump victory, day one, I don't know about action, but day one there will be a review across the board. Because what we have had during the Biden-Harris presidency is a substantial shift in the regulatory state, a substantial shift in trade. And I think all of those things that shifted from 2020 to 2024 will be under review. And it makes sense. I think that the softening in trade policy with China, the softening in trade policy, particularly with Iran, and the question of whether secondary sanctions are on the table, which Brian Sullivan was just talking about, all of that will be under review.
It's moving these markets is Amrita Sen, Energy Aspects founder and director of research. And Amrita, I mean, this is really a story of waiting to see what happens with Israel and Iran.
Yeah, and I think today's reaction is as much about the lack of Chinese stimulus details. The market was expecting potentially some more, and just talking to a lot of participants in Asia, they were just expecting more stimulus to be announced. It's not that it won't come, but it could take longer, and they haven't given many details. And then on top of that, of course, everybody's waiting for Iran-Israel to see how it kind of pans out.
I mean, WTI has been up for now 2 weeks in a row. It still can be a little bit of a surprise when you look at that price and realize this is where we stand with all the geopolitical risk in the world right now.
Oh, 100%. I mean, in the past, if we were in a situation like this, I think you and I would be talking about $100+. I think it really tells you how bearish sentiment is. And it's an interesting dichotomy because inventories globally are super low. But the market's kind of looking forward to 2025 and talking about, oh, it is going to be very oversupplied, and somehow kind of has gotten itself into this mindset of it doesn't matter what's going on right now. It is the kind of future and the bearish future that's what's dictating prices today.
Does that lead you to think that there's the potential for huge volatility if something does swing?
Oh, 100%. I think the volatility, especially because the market's so short, we just don't have anybody really who's long right now. CTAs, like the high-frequency traders, are a little bit long, but discretionary funds aren't. So if they are forced to cover, let's say there is a target on kind of Iranian energy infrastructure and then there's retaliation in the region, I think that's when you can see the real risk. And a lot of traders seem to be trading via options these days. So again, if they have to then cover that via futures market, I think you're going to get some significant rally.
I mean, we haven't even mentioned Russia and the potential for their oil being disrupted at any point.
Yeah, and I think the market in some ways is very jaded by exactly that. Since pretty much what I'd say 2019, the upcake attacks, geopolitics hasn't necessarily led to supply losses. The sanctions here against Russia were never designed to lose Russian barrels. It was about trying to reduce the fine or the revenue going into Russia. So a lot of people bet on losing Russian oil. We haven't. It's just redirected to China and India. And I think that's exactly why the market is so jaded trading geopolitics. And now it's almost like we need to see if there's an actual outage. That's when the market's going to trade this.
So let's talk the supply side at this point. Production in the United States has been a big factor. Does that knock out the possibility of getting to the levels we used to consider being normal in crazy geopolitical situations like this?
So I just came back. I just came from Houston, and I think for me the biggest takeaway there were the biggest and the mid-sized and small-sized Permian producers telling us we're not going to be able to grow regardless of the price because we are running out of acreage. And this year, U.S. production has been pretty much flat. It hasn't grown. And, you know, for all the talk of, like, obviously, very importantly, the geopolitics, we haven't seen any media reports about how poor non-OPEC supply growth has been this year. We all started the year thinking about 1.5 million barrels per day of growth. We're tracking 300,000 barrels per day only.
Well, we're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, you know, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, you know, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, well, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in an ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and you know, when the dealers have to step in to save a Treasury auction, That's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the new World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Tam save New York from COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Drama Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.